Marcus Chen pressed his face against the viewport of the transport vessel, watching the alien world of Vorth Prime grow larger beneath them. The planet's crimson surface was scarred with deep canyons and towering mountain ranges that jutted into the pale orange sky like broken teeth. 3 moons hung in the distance, casting an eerie glow over the landscape that made his stomach churn with nervousness. "First time off Earth, kid?" The voice belonged to Captain Rodriguez, a weathered woman in her 50s who had been traveling the galaxy for longer than Marcus had been alive. Her dark eyes held a mixture of sympathy and warning. Marcus nodded, pulling his worn duffel bag closer to his chest. At 19, he was the youngest member of the diplomatic exchange program, selected more for his exceptional grades in xenobiology than any real experience with alien cultures. The selection committee had called him promising and adaptable, but sitting here now, surrounded by seasoned diplomats and traders, he felt like a child playing dress-up. "Listen carefully," Rodriguez continued, lowering her voice as the ship's engines began their landing sequence. "The Vorthak are proud hunters. Their entire society revolves around the hunt, strength, and proving yourself through combat. They don't respect weakness, and to them, humans are already considered soft because we rely on technology instead of natural abilities." Marcus swallowed hard. He had studied the Vorthak extensively during his preparation, but reading about their culture was different from actually being about to meet them. The Vorthak stood nearly 8 feet tall with forearms ending in razor-sharp claws, thick chitinous armor covering their bodies, and predatory instincts that had kept them at the top of their planet's food chain for millions of years. "The exchange program is important," Rodriguez added. "Earth needs the trade agreements with the Vorthak Confederation. Their technology and bioengineering is centuries ahead of ours, and their military alliance could protect us from the Xanth Empire. But if you embarrass yourself or humanity during your stay here, it could set back relations for decades." The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus's shoulders like a lead blanket. He had volunteered for this program thinking it would be an adventure, a chance to see the galaxy and make a difference. Now he realized he might be completely out of his depth. The ship touched down with a gentle thud, and through the viewport, Marcus could see a delegation of Vorthak warriors waiting on the landing platform. They stood in perfect formation, their forearms crossed in what he recognized as a formal greeting posture. Their leader, identifiable by the intricate bone ornaments woven into his chitinous plates, stepped forward as the ship's ramp lowered. "That's Huntmaster Kazthor," Rodriguez explained. "He's one of the most respected warriors on Vorth Prime. His hunting achievements are legendary even by Vorthak standards. Show him respect, but don't grovel. They despise weakness more than anything." Marcus gathered his courage and followed the diplomatic team down the ramp. The moment he stepped onto Vorthak soil, the planet's harsh environment hit him like a physical blow. The air was thin and dry, filled with the scent of sulfur and ozone. The gravity was noticeably heavier than Earth's, making each step feel labored. The red sand beneath his feet crunched like broken glass. Huntmaster Kazthor's 4 black eyes fixed on the human delegation, scanning each member with predatory intensity. When his gaze reached Marcus, it lingered for a long moment. The young human could feel the alien warrior evaluating him, judging his worth with the instincts of an apex predator. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Kazthor spoke in heavily accented Standard Galactic. His voice was deep and rumbling like distant thunder. "I am Huntmaster Kazthor of the Bloodclaw clan. The Confederation Council has tasked me with overseeing your stay on our world." Ambassador Williams, the head of the human delegation, stepped forward and performed the traditional Vorthak greeting gesture, touching his forehead with both hands. "We are honored by your presence, Huntmaster. We come seeking understanding and mutual benefit between our peoples." Kazthor's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned was the Vorthak equivalent of a polite smile. "Indeed. The young ones of your delegation will be assigned to different clans for cultural immersion as agreed. This one," he gestured toward Marcus with one of his forearms, "will come with my clan." Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. He had expected to be assigned to one of the more scholarly clans, perhaps the technicians or the builders. The Bloodclaw clan was known throughout Vorthak society as the most traditional, most focused on hunting and warfare. They were the elite among an already elite warrior race. "The youth looks weak," commented another Vorthak warrior. This one younger than Kazthor but still imposing. His name was Draxin, and Marcus recognized him from the cultural briefings as Kazthor's nephew and heir to clan leadership. "Humans are soft, They cannot hunt, cannot fight with honor. Why do we waste time with this pale creature? Several other young Vorthak warriors chittered in agreement, their mandibles clicking in what Marcus knew was derisive laughter. He felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger, but he forced himself to remain silent. Arguing would only prove their point about human weakness. Casthor's 4 eyes flashed dangerously at his nephew's words. Draxen, you forget your manners in the presence of guests. The humans may appear different from us, but underestimating any species has led to the downfall of many hunters. My apologies, Uncle, Draxen replied, though his tone suggested he felt anything but sorry. I merely speak what we all observe. This young one cannot even stand properly in our gravity. How will he survive the trials ahead? Marcus realized that his first few minutes on Vorth Prime had already set the tone for his entire stay. The young Vorthak warriors clearly saw him as nothing more than a weak alien to be mocked and dismissed. He thought about Rodriguez's warning about not embarrassing humanity, and felt a knot of determination form in his stomach. I may look different from you, Marcus said, his voice steady despite his nervousness, but I did not come here to hide from challenges. If there are trials ahead, I will face them. The assembled Vorthak fell silent at his words. Draxen's 4 eyes narrowed, while Casthor's mandibles twitched in what might have been approval or amusement. Bold words from such a small creature, Draxen said. We shall see if your actions match your speech, human. As the delegation began moving toward the clan settlement, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he had just walked into something far more dangerous than a cultural exchange. The red sands of Vorth Prime stretched endlessly in all directions, and somewhere in that hostile landscape, he would have to prove that humanity deserved respect. The Bloodclaw clan settlement rose from the crimson landscape like a fortress carved from the planet itself. Massive stone structures, reinforced with biometal from defeated prey, formed concentric circles around a central arena where the constant sounds of combat training echoed across the compound. Marcus struggled to keep up with the Vorthak warriors as they strode through the settlement, his legs burning from the increased gravity. Young Vorthak watched from doorways and training grounds as the strange human passed by. Their 4 eyes tracked his every stumble, every labored breath, every sign of weakness. Marcus could hear their chittering laughter following him like a swarm of insects. The human walks like a hatchling learning to use its limbs, one young warrior called out in Vorthak, not caring if Marcus understood. Perhaps we should feed it soft grubs instead of proper meat, another added. Causing a fresh wave of laughter, Marcus gritted his teeth but kept walking. He had spent 2 years learning the Vorthak language as part of his preparation, but the warriors assumed he couldn't understand their insults. Their mistake might prove useful later. Huntmaster Casthor led them to a large circular building at the center of the settlement. The entrance was carved with intricate hunting scenes depicting legendary Vorthak victories over massive beasts that dwarfed even their impressive forms. Inside, the walls were lined with trophies, weapons and armor from countless hunts spanning generations. This is the Hall of Honor, Casthor explained, his voice carrying the reverence of deep tradition. Every significant hunt, every great victory of our clan is recorded here. To earn a place on these walls is the highest achievement a Bloodclaw can attain. Marcus studied the displays with genuine interest, his xenobiology training helping him identify various alien creatures and understand their ecological significance. One particular trophy caught his attention, a massive skull with 3 rows of teeth and horn formations unlike anything in his extensive studies. That is from a crimson stalker, Draxen said, noticing Marcus's focus. The most dangerous predator on Vorth Prime. My uncle killed it with nothing but his claws and natural weapons, earning his position as huntmaster. It took 17 hours of continuous battle in the glass canyons. Despite his hostility toward Marcus, Draxen spoke with obvious pride about his uncle's achievement. The respect in his voice was unmistakable. Impressive, Marcus said genuinely. The bone density and tooth structure suggest a creature adapted for extreme durability. The victory must have required incredible strategy and endurance. Casthor's mandibles twitched with what Marcus was beginning to recognize as surprise. You understand predator anatomy? I studied xenobiology on Earth, Marcus replied. Understanding alien life forms and their adaptations has always fascinated me. For a moment, the Huntmaster's 4 eyes studied Marcus with newfound interest. But Draxen quickly interrupted. Book learning is not the same as facing death in combat, he sneered. Any coward can memorize facts while hiding safely in a library. Enough, Kazthor commanded sharply. The human will be given quarters in the youth barracks. Tomorrow, he will begin integration training with the other young warriors. We will see what he is truly made of. The youth barracks were a harsh awakening to Vorthak military culture. The sleeping quarters consisted of hard stone slabs with minimal padding, designed to prepare young warriors for sleeping in hostile environments. The common area held training equipment that looked more like torture devices to human eyes, weighted weapons that Marcus could barely lift, and climbing structures that challenged even the naturally agile Vorthak. Marcus's assigned sleeping area was in a corner, isolated from the main group. As he unpacked his few belongings, he became aware that every young Vorthak in the barracks was watching him with varying degrees of curiosity and contempt. "So this is the legendary human warrior," said a voice behind him. Marcus turned to see a particularly large young Vorthak, his chitinous plates marked with fresh scars from recent training. "I am Vextar, strongest of this year's warrior candidates. I hear your species believes they are worthy of alliance with the Confederation." Marcus straightened to his full height, though he still barely reached Vextar's chest. "I'm Marcus Chen. I'm here to learn about your culture and hopefully build understanding between our peoples." Vextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Understanding? The only understanding that matters is strength against strength, hunter against prey. Your soft flesh and weak limbs tell us everything we need to know about humans." "Perhaps," Marcus replied calmly, "but I notice you're making assumptions without any actual proof." The barracks fell silent. Challenging a Vorthak warrior, even verbally, was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Vextar's four eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "Proof? Very well, human. Tomorrow we begin endurance training in the glass canyons. If you can complete even half the course without collapsing, I will consider that perhaps humans are slightly above the level of prey animals." The other young Vorthak chittered with anticipation. The glass canyons were notorious for their brutal training conditions, designed to push even naturally hardy Vorthak to their limits. For a human, it would likely be impossible. "I accept," Marcus said without hesitation, though his stomach clenched with fear. That night, as the Vorthak youth settled into their sleeping areas, Marcus lay awake staring at the alien constellations visible through the barracks windows. The weight of expectation pressed down on him heavier than the planet's increased gravity. He thought about his family back on Earth, about the professors who had believed in him, about the diplomatic mission that hung in the balance. Around him, he could hear whispered conversations in Vorthak, the young warriors making bets about how quickly he would fail, how many minutes he would last before begging to return to the safety of the settlement. Some even wondered if he would survive the training at all. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to focus on what he knew about human physiology compared to Vorthak biology. While the aliens were stronger and more naturally armed, humans had evolved different advantages. Their endurance hunting techniques had allowed early humans to outlast much larger and stronger prey on Earth. Their problem-solving abilities and adaptability had carried them to the stars, but would those advantages be enough in an alien environment, designed to challenge the ultimate predators of this world? Tomorrow would determine not just his personal survival, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and the Vorthak Confederation. As sleep finally took him, Marcus dreamed of the glass canyons, of razor-sharp crystal formations and hunting grounds where only the strongest survived. In his dream, he ran through endless mazes of reflective stone while unseen predators stalked him from every shadow. When he woke, he realized the dream might be closer to reality than he wanted to admit. The morning alarm sounded like a war cry, echoing through the barracks and jolting every young warrior to immediate alertness. Marcus groaned as his body protested the combination of alien gravity and the hard sleeping surface, but he forced himself to stand. Around him, the Vorthak youths moved with fluid efficiency, gathering equipment and preparing for the day's trials. Today would determine whether he was a warrior worthy of respect, or simply another soft alien to be dismissed and forgotten. The glass canyons stretched before them like a crystalline nightmare, their reflective walls creating a maze of light and shadow that hurt to look at directly. Marcus squinted against the glare, his human eyes struggling to adapt to the environment that the Vorthak navigated with predatory ease. The canyon floor was littered with razor-sharp crystal shards that crunched underfoot like broken promises. Training. Master Gorthax stood at the canyon entrance, his scarred chitin plates telling the story of countless battles survived. He was ancient by Vorthak standards. His forearms moved with the deliberate precision of a lifetime warrior, and his four eyes held the cold assessment of someone who had seen many young warriors fail. "Today you will run the gauntlet of mirrors," he announced, his voice echoing off the crystal walls, 15 kilometers through the canyon system, navigating by instinct and endurance alone. You will carry full combat packs weighing 50 standard units. The reflective surfaces will disorient you. The crystal formations will cut you. The thin air will test your lungs. Only those worthy of warrior status will complete the course. Marcus looked at the combat pack placed before him and felt his heart sink. 50 standard units translated to nearly 70 pounds in Earth measurements, and that was before accounting for the increased gravity. The other Vorthak youths shouldered their packs with casual ease, their naturally powerful builds making the weight seem insignificant. "The human's pack should be reduced," suggested one of the training assistants. "His frail body cannot handle the same load as true warriors." "No," Marcus said firmly, stepping forward to lift his pack. The weight hit his shoulders like a sledgehammer, driving him to one knee before he managed to stand. "I'll carry the same load as everyone else." Gorthax's mandibles clicked with what might have been approval or amusement. "So be it. The course will show us your true nature, regardless of the weight you carry." Vextar leaned close to Marcus as they lined up at the starting position. "Last chance to withdraw with dignity, human. The canyon has claimed the lives of Vorthak warriors stronger than you." "Then I guess I'll have to be smarter instead of stronger," Marcus replied, adjusting his pack straps. The starting signal was a piercing shriek that echoed through the canyon like the cry of some massive predator. The Vorthak youths exploded into motion, their powerful legs carrying them forward with incredible speed. Marcus found himself immediately falling behind, his human physiology simply unable to match their natural burst acceleration. The first kilometer was pure agony. The increased gravity made every step feel like he was running through thick mud, while the combat pack seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute. The crystal walls threw back distorted reflections that made it difficult to judge distances and directions. Several times Marcus found himself running toward what appeared to be an opening, only to slam into a reflective surface that had confused his perception. Behind him, he could hear the chittering laughter of the Vorthak youths who had deliberately slowed their pace to keep him in sight, treating his struggle as entertainment. "Look at the human stumble," Draxin called out. "Perhaps we should mark a trail of grubs for him to follow. Or carry him on our backs like the burden he is," added Vextar. Marcus gritted his teeth and tried to focus on the path ahead. His xenobiology training kicked in, helping him understand how the Vorthak were navigating the confusing terrain. They weren't relying primarily on vision like humans did, he realized. Their other senses, enhanced by millions of years of predatory evolution, were guiding them through the maze. He began to pay attention to air currents, to the subtle sound differences that indicated open spaces versus dead ends, to the way the crystal formations created acoustic patterns. Slowly, his navigation improved, though his pace remained frustratingly slow compared to his alien companions. By the third kilometer, something unexpected began to happen. While the Vorthak youths had started strong, their powerful burst-oriented physiology was beginning to show its limitations. Marcus noticed their breathing becoming more labored, their previously effortless strides showing signs of strain. They were built for short, intense hunts, not extended endurance challenges. Marcus, meanwhile, was settling into the rhythm that had carried his ancestors across the African savanna in pursuit of prey much larger and stronger than themselves. His human body, evolved for persistence hunting, began to find its element. The pain in his muscles shifted from sharp agony to a steady burn that he could manage and endure. "The soft human is still following," one of the younger Vorthak noted with surprise. "I thought he would have collapsed by now." "Give him time," Vextar panted, though Marcus could hear the uncertainty creeping into his voice. The middle section of the canyon presented new challenges. Narrow passages forced the runners to move single file, while climbing sections required scrambling over crystal formations sharp enough to cut through carelessly placed hands or feet. Here, Marcus's smaller size became an advantage rather than a liability. Where the larger Vorthak had to force their way through tight spaces, he could slip through with relative ease. His hands were soon bloody from the sharp crystal edges, but he had expected that. What he hadn't expected was how quickly some of the Vorthak youths were beginning to tire. Their initial mocking had given way to focused breathing and grim determination. "How is the human keeping pace?" Draxon demanded during a brief rest stop at the canyon's halfway point. "He should have fallen hours ago." Vexitar studied Marcus with new interest, noting how the human's breathing, while heavy, remained steady and controlled. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we assumed." Or perhaps, came a voice from above them, "You are learning why one should not judge a hunter by appearance alone." They looked up to see Huntmaster Kazthor watching from a crystal outcropping, having somehow moved ahead of the group to observe their progress. His four eyes were focused intently on Marcus, and there was something in his expression that hadn't been there before. "Uncle," Draxon called questioningly. "Continue your run," Kazthor commanded. "The test is far from over." The final stretch of the canyon was the most brutal yet. The path wound upward through a series of steep climbs and treacherous descents, while the thin air made every breath a struggle. Several of the Vorthak youths were now moving at barely more than a walk, their powerful physiques betraying them in the face of sustained exertion. Marcus found himself not just keeping pace, but actually beginning to close the gap. His human endurance was proving its worth, just as it had millions of years ago when his ancestors hunted massive beasts across endless plains. Where the Vorthak were built for overwhelming initial force, humans were built to never give up, to keep coming long after their prey thought the danger had passed. One by one, Vorthak youths began to fall behind, their bodies simply unable to maintain the grueling pace. Those who had mocked Marcus most loudly were among the first to struggle, their earlier confidence replaced by bewildered exhaustion. "This is impossible," Vexitar gasped as Marcus actually moved past him on a particularly steep climb. "How can something so weak endure what defeats us?" Marcus paused for just a moment, looking back at the warrior who had challenged him. "Because sometimes being weak forces you to become strong in different ways." As he approached the final kilometer, Marcus realized he was no longer last. In fact, only 5 of the original 12 Vorthak youths were still ahead of him, and their lead was shrinking with every step. The impossible was happening. The weak human was not just surviving the brutal endurance test, he was actually competing. The finish line came into view through the crystal maze, marked by a banner bearing the Bloodclaw clan symbol. Marcus could see Gorthaks waiting there, along with a growing crowd of adult Vorthak warriors who had come to witness the conclusion of the trial. In the final 100 meters, Marcus passed 2 more exhausted Vorthak youths, finishing 4th out of 12 competitors. As he crossed the finish line and finally allowed himself to collapse, the assembled warriors fell into stunned silence. The weak human had not just survived, he had excelled. The silence that followed Marcus's finish was deafening. The assembled Vorthak warriors stared at the gasping human who lay sprawled on the crystal-littered ground, their 4 eyes wide with disbelief. Several of the youths who had failed to complete the course were still limping in, their earlier arrogance replaced by shame and exhaustion. Training Master Gorthax approached Marcus with slow, deliberate steps. His ancient features were unreadable, but there was a new quality to the way he studied the young human. "Stand," he commanded. Marcus struggled to his feet, his legs shaking from exhaustion and the accumulated stress of the brutal trial. Blood seeped from dozens of small cuts where the crystal formations had found their mark, and his breath came in ragged gasps. But he stood. "You finished 4th, Gorthax stated, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. "Out of 12 warriors, you placed 4th. This has never happened before." Draxon, who had barely managed to finish 6th, stepped forward with his mandibles clicking in agitation. "There must be some mistake. Humans are prey animals. They cannot outperform Vorthak warriors in a test of endurance." "Yet the evidence stands before us," came Huntmaster Kazthor's voice as he approached from the canyon entrance. He had followed the runners through the entire course, observing Marcus's performance with growing interest. The human not only completed the gauntlet of mirrors but did so while carrying the same burden as warriors twice his size. Vexitar, who had finished a humiliating 9th, snarled in frustration. "This changes nothing. One fluke performance does not make him a true warrior. Combat skill is what matters, not the ability to run long distances like a prey animal fleeing predators." An interesting perspective, Kazthor mused, his 4 eyes fixed on his nephew and the other young warriors. Tell me, Vextar, in your extensive combat experience, how often do hunts end quickly? The young Vorthak warrior's chitin plates shifted uncomfortably. Most hunts require patience and persistence, Huntmaster. Indeed. And what is the most dangerous moment for a hunter? When the prey refuses to die, Vextar admitted reluctantly. Exactly. The prey that keeps fighting, that refuses to accept defeat, that continues moving when it should have fallen. That is what kills hunters. Casthor turned his gaze to Marcus. Today we learned that humans may appear to be prey, but they possess the most dangerous quality prey can have. They do not know when to quit. The crowd of warriors began murmuring among themselves, and Marcus could sense a shift in their perception. Where before there had been dismissive contempt, now there was wary uncertainty. They were beginning to realize that their assumptions about human weakness might be dangerously incomplete. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into the clan's training regimen with determined intensity. The other Vorthak youths no longer openly mocked him, but neither did they accept him. He remained an outsider, a curiosity to be observed rather than embraced. However, his performance in endurance trials continued to astonish even the most skeptical warriors. During stealth training in the Shadow Caves, where Vorthak youths learned to move silently through absolute darkness, Marcus's human adaptability proved invaluable. While the Vorthak relied heavily on their predatory instincts, Marcus learned to use tools and techniques that maximized his species' problem-solving abilities. He fashioned sound dampeners from cave moss, mapped acoustic patterns to avoid echoing chambers, and developed movement techniques that minimized noise despite his unfamiliarity with the terrain. The human thinks like prey, trying to avoid predators, observed instructor Yazaketh, but he uses those techniques more effectively than most predators use their natural advantages. Combat training proved more challenging. Marcus simply could not match Vorthak's strength or speed in direct confrontation. Their forearms, natural claws, and chitinous armor gave them overwhelming advantages in traditional warrior combat. However, Marcus began to develop unconventional tactics that exploited his smaller size and different center of gravity. During sparring sessions, he learned to use Vorthak assumptions against them. They expected him to retreat or defend desperately, so he began incorporating sudden aggressive movements that caught them off guard. His human flexibility allowed him to escape grapples that would incapacitate other opponents, while his endurance let him outlast opponents who expected quick victories. He fights like no creature I have ever faced. Draxon complained after a particularly frustrating training session, where Marcus had avoided defeat through pure persistence and unpredictability. He should be easy to defeat, but somehow he makes every exchange difficult. That is because you fight him as if he were a Vorthak warrior using inferior equipment, Casthor observed from the training circle's edge. But he is not a weak Vorthak, he is a strong human. Until you understand the difference, you will continue to struggle against him. The real turning point came during wilderness survival training in the Crimson Wastes, the harshest environment on Vorth Prime. The young warriors were dropped in groups of 3, equipped only with basic tools, and expected to survive for 7 days while navigating to a distant checkpoint. Marcus was grouped with Draxon and a warrior named Torvin, both of whom still harbored significant resentment toward the human. On the 2nd day, their water purification tablets ran out after Torvin accidentally contaminated their water supply. The Vorthak youths began to panic. Without clean water, they would die in the desert within days. This is the human's fault, Draxon snarled, his stress causing his natural aggression to surface. If we were not burdened with protecting this weak creature, we could move faster and reach the checkpoint before our supplies failed. Actually, Marcus said calmly, studying their surroundings with the analytical eye of a xenobiologist, I think I can solve our water problem. He had noticed something the Vorthak had missed, a particular type of crystalline formation that, according to his studies, indicated the presence of subsurface moisture. Using techniques from human desert survival training, combined with his knowledge of alien geology, Marcus guided them to a location where they could dig for water. The Vorthak were skeptical until clean, drinkable water began seeping into the hole Marcus had directed them to dig. Their desperate thirst overcame their pride, and they drank gratefully from the water source the human had found. How did you know? Torvin asked. his attitude toward Marcus shifting from hostility to grudging respect. On Earth, humans survived in deserts for thousands of years before we had advanced technology, Marcus explained. My people learned to read the signs that indicate water, food, and safe shelter. Those skills don't become less useful just because we later invented machines to do the work. That night, as they shared their meager rations around a carefully concealed fire, Drakzin studied Marcus with new eyes. You are not what we expected humans to be. Most humans aren't warriors like the Vorthak, Marcus acknowledged. But that doesn't mean we're helpless. We just use different strengths to survive. The remainder of their survival trial saw continued cooperation, with Marcus's knowledge and adaptability complementing the Vorthak youth's natural physical advantages. They reached the checkpoint with time to spare, and word of their successful collaboration began to spread throughout the Bloodclaw clan. When they returned to the settlement, Marcus noticed that the other young warriors no longer automatically dismissed him. Some even began asking questions about human survival techniques and endurance training methods. The change was subtle but significant. He was beginning to earn their respect through demonstrated competence rather than demanding it through false bravado. However, Marcus knew that real acceptance would require more than just proving he wasn't completely helpless. The Vorthak were a warrior culture, and ultimate respect could only be earned through combat achievement. That opportunity would come sooner than he expected, and in a way he could never have anticipated. The emergency alert that shattered the pre-dawn calm sent every warrior in the settlement scrambling for weapons and armor. Marcus jolted awake in his barracks bunk to see the Vorthak youths around him moving with urgent efficiency, their training taking over as they prepared for whatever threat had triggered the alarm. What's happening? Marcus asked Torvin, who was strapping on his combat harness with practiced speed. Pack hunters in the eastern canyon, Torvin replied grimly. Shadow stalkers by the scent markers our perimeter scouts detected. A full pack, maybe 20 or more. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. Shadow stalkers were among the most feared predators on Vorth Prime, creatures that had evolved specifically to hunt the Vorthak themselves. They were smaller than the warriors, but fought in coordinated packs, using stealth speed and venomous claws to bring down prey much larger than themselves. Even experienced Vorthak hunters treated Shadow Stalker packs with deadly seriousness. The breeding season must have driven them closer to our territory than usual, Drakzin said as he checked his weapon harnesses. They're probably desperate enough to attack the settlement directly. Huntmaster Kazthor's voice boomed across the settlement as he issued rapid orders. All warriors to defensive positions. Youth warriors remain within the compound perimeter. This is not a training exercise. Shadow stalkers show no mercy to the inexperienced. Marcus started to follow the other youths toward the defensive positions, but Kazthor's voice stopped him. Human, you will remain in the youth barracks. This battle is beyond your capabilities. The dismissal stung, but Marcus understood the logic. He had proven himself capable in training and survival situations, but actual combat against deadly predators was an entirely different challenge. He watched through the barracks windows as adult Vorthak warriors took positions along the settlement's perimeter, their natural hunting instincts and years of experience evident in every movement. For hours, intense quiet settled over the compound. The warriors waited in perfect stillness, knowing that shadow stalkers preferred to attack when their prey was relaxed and unprepared. Marcus used the time to study their defensive formation, trying to understand Vorthak military tactics through observation. The attack, when it came, was swift and terrifying. The shadow stalkers hit the settlement's eastern wall in a coordinated rush, their dark forms flowing over the defensive barriers like a living shadow. Their hunting cries echoed off the canyon walls, a sound that chilled the blood and spoke to primal fears buried deep in any prey animal's memory. Marcus watched the battle unfold with growing dread. The Vorthak warriors fought with incredible skill and ferocity, but the Shadow Stalkers' pack tactics were proving devastatingly effective. The predators worked together with seamless coordination, creating diversions that allowed others to slip through defensive lines, overwhelming individual warriors through sheer numbers. The battle line began to buckle under the sustained assault. Several warriors had already fallen to Shadow Stalker venom, their bodies paralyzed while the pack predators prepared to deliver killing strikes. Marcus could see that despite their courage and training, the defenders were being systematically outmaneuvered. Then he noticed something that made his xenobiologist's mind race with possibilities. The Shadow Stalker's attack pattern wasn't random. They were following specific behavioral protocols evolved over millions of years. They avoided certain areas, preferring others, and their pack coordination followed predictable hierarchical structures. "I have to help," Marcus muttered, grabbing his survival kit and heading for the barracks door. "The Huntmaster ordered you to remain here," Torvin called out, though his own voice was tight with worry as he watched the battle. "The Huntmaster ordered me to stay here because he thought I'd be useless in combat," Marcus replied. "But I might not be useless in the way he expects." Before anyone could stop him, Marcus slipped out of the barracks and began working his way toward the eastern wall. He avoided the main battle zones, using his smaller size and human stealth techniques to move through areas the larger combatants couldn't access. What he found confirmed his suspicions. The Shadow Stalkers were following scent trails and territorial markers that the Vorthak defenders didn't fully understand. Using his xenobiology knowledge, Marcus began to piece together the pack's tactical structure. They had a complex hierarchy, with alpha hunters directing the assault while specialized scouts probed for weaknesses. More importantly, he realized their coordination depended heavily on chemical communication, pheromone markers that allowed the pack to share tactical information in real time. If those chemical signals could be disrupted or confused, the Shadow Stalker's devastating pack coordination would break down. Marcus began moving through the settlement's rear areas, gathering specific materials from his survival training. Certain plants from the canyon walls, when burned, produced smoke that could overwhelm sensitive predator scent reception. Combined with some of the chemical supplies from the settlement's equipment stores, he might be able to create enough olfactory chaos to disrupt the pack's coordination. Working frantically while the battle raged nearby, Marcus created several crude but effective scent bombs. The materials were basic: plant fibers, chemical accelerants, and timing mechanisms improvised from training equipment. But the principles were sound. The dangerous part would be getting close enough to deploy them without being killed by either the Shadow Stalkers or the Vorthak warriors who might mistake him for a threat in the chaos of combat. Marcus crept toward the eastern wall, using terrain features and combat debris as cover. The sounds of battle were deafening: the clash of chitin against claw, the hunting cries of the Shadow Stalkers, the war shouts of the Vorthak defenders. Several times he had to freeze in place as wounded warriors or pursuing predators passed within meters of his position. Finally, he reached a point where he could see the Shadow Stalker pack's tactical structure in action. The alpha predators positioned themselves at strategic points, using chemical signals to direct their subordinates' movements. It was a deadly dance of coordination that was slowly but inevitably overwhelming the settlement's defenses. Marcus activated his first scent bomb and threw it into the midst of a Shadow Stalker tactical group. The device erupted in a cloud of acrid smoke that sent the predators into immediate confusion. Their carefully coordinated movement patterns dissolved as their chemical communication network was overwhelmed by conflicting scents. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Without their tactical coordination, the Shadow Stalkers reverted to individual hunting behaviors rather than pack tactics. The Vorthak defenders, trained for exactly this type of opportunity, pressed their advantage against the now confused predators. Marcus deployed his remaining scent bombs at key points along the battle line, systematically disrupting the Shadow Stalker pack structure. Each deployment created pockets of chaos where the predators' overwhelming coordination advantage disappeared. The tide of battle began to turn as the Shadow Stalkers found themselves fighting as individuals rather than as a coordinated pack. The Vorthak warriors' superior individual combat skills and defensive advantages finally began to tell, and the predator assault started to falter. But Marcus's activities had not gone unnoticed. A Shadow Stalker scout, separated from its pack by the olfactory confusion, detected the human's scent and began stalking him through the settlement's rear areas. Marcus realized his danger too, late, turning to find himself face-to-face with a predator evolved specifically to kill the galaxy's most formidable warrior species. The Shadow Stalker was everything his xenobiology texts had described and more: sleek, deadly, with reflexes faster than thought and claws dripping with paralytic venom. It studied Marcus with intelligent eyes, recognizing him as the source. of the chemical disruption that was destroying its pack's tactical advantage. Marcus had no weapons, no armor, and no chance of outfighting a creature designed to kill opponents far stronger than himself. But as the Shadow Stalker prepared to strike, he realized he had something else. The accumulated experience of weeks among the Vorthak, learning not just their techniques but their warrior philosophy. Sometimes the only way forward was straight through the danger. The Shadow Stalker moved like liquid death, its form blurring as it prepared to strike. Marcus had perhaps 2 seconds before venomous claws would end his life. But those 2 seconds stretched like hours as his mind processed everything he had learned about predator behavior and Vorthak combat philosophy. The creature expected him to flee or cower. That was how prey animals responded to apex predators. Instead, Marcus did something that violated every survival instinct evolution had given him. He charged directly at the Shadow Stalker, letting out a war cry that would have made any Vorthak warrior proud. The unexpected aggression caught the predator off guard for a crucial instant. Its strike, aimed at where Marcus should have been if he had retreated, missed by centimeters as the human dove under its attack. Marcus rolled between the creature's legs, using his smaller size and lower center of gravity to get inside its striking range where its longer limbs became disadvantages rather than assets. The Shadow Stalker spun with feline grace, but Marcus was already moving again. He had no weapons, but the settlement's training areas were full of equipment. His hand closed around a weighted training spear, and he spun to face the predator just as it launched its second attack. What followed was the most terrifying 30 seconds of Marcus's life. The Shadow Stalker was faster, stronger, and far more experienced in combat than he could ever hope to be. Its claws carved gouges in the stone walls where he had been standing moments before, and its venomous strikes came so close that he could feel the wind of their passage. But Marcus had advantages the creature didn't understand. Human persistence hunting had evolved to exhaust prey through relentless pursuit, and that same endurance now served him in combat. While the Shadow Stalker expected a quick kill, Marcus focused on survival, using his training spear to keep distance and his agility to avoid the killing strikes. More importantly, his weeks among the Vorthak had taught him to think like a warrior rather than prey. He wasn't just trying to survive. He was looking for opportunities to strike back. That opportunity came when the Shadow Stalker overcommitted to a killing lunge, expecting Marcus to be exhausted and easy prey. Instead, the human sidestepped with energy reserves the predator hadn't anticipated, and drove his training spear point directly into the creature's exposed throat. The Shadow Stalker's momentum carried it forward, impaling itself on the makeshift weapon. Its death cry was a gurgling screech that echoed across the settlement, audible even over the sounds of the larger battle. Marcus stood over the fallen predator, shaking with adrenaline and disbelief. He had just killed a creature that regularly preyed on the galaxy's most formidable warriors, using nothing but improvised weapons and determination. "Impossible," came a voice behind him. Marcus spun to see Huntmaster Kazthor approaching, his 4 eyes fixed on the dead Shadow Stalker with an expression of profound shock. Behind him came several other Vorthak warriors, drawn by the creature's death cry. "The human killed a Shadow Stalker in single combat," one of them whispered, his voice filled with awe. "Not just any Shadow Stalker," Kazthor said, studying the creature's size and scars. "This is an Alpha Scout, one of the pack's most experienced killers. It has the scars of dozens of successful hunts." The Huntmaster's gaze shifted to Marcus, and for the first time since arriving on Vorth Prime, the young human saw something in those alien eyes that he had never expected to see: genuine respect. "How?" Kazthor asked simply. "It expected me to act like prey," Marcus replied, still breathing heavily from the fight. "But I've been learning from the best hunters in the galaxy. I acted like a warrior instead." Around them, the battle was winding down as the disrupted Shadow Stalker pack fell to the coordinated Vorthak defense. The predators, unable to maintain their tactical coordination due to Marcus's scent bombs, had been systematically defeated by warriors who no longer faced overwhelming numerical disadvantage. News of the humans' single combat victory spread through the settlement faster than wildfire. By the time the last Shadow Stalker had been driven off or killed, every warrior in the Bloodclaw clan had heard the impossible story. The weak alien had killed an Alpha Shadow Stalker in personal combat. That evening, As the clan gathered to honor their fallen and celebrate their victory, Marcus found himself at the center of attention in a way he had never experienced. Warriors who had previously dismissed him now approached with curiosity and respect, asking about human combat techniques and endurance capabilities. "I owe you an apology," Draxian said, approaching Marcus during the victory feast. "I believed humans were weak because I judged strength only by our own standards. Today you showed me that there are different kinds of strength, all worthy of respect." Vextar, who had been Marcus's most vocal critic, stepped forward with obvious reluctance. The human fought with honor against an enemy that has killed many experienced warriors. His victory brings glory to the clan regardless of his species. But it was Training Master Gorthax who delivered the words that truly changed Marcus's status within the clan. The ancient warrior approached the human with something Marcus had never seen before, a weapon harness bearing the distinctive markings of a Bloodclaw warrior. "No outsider has ever worn our battle marks," Gorthax announced to the assembled clan. "But today, we learned that blood and honor are not determined by the species of one's birth. The human has proven himself in combat against our greatest enemies. He has earned the right to be called warrior." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything in Vorthak tradition. Never before had an alien been inducted into a warrior clan, but Marcus's achievements had created a situation that required new precedents. As the battle harness was placed on his shoulders and the clan's ritual scars were painted on his arms, Marcus realized he was witnessing a historic moment. Huntmaster Kazthor performed the final ritual, touching Marcus's forehead with all four hands in the traditional gesture of warrior recognition. "You came to us as a soft alien seeking understanding," he said, his voice carrying across the assembled clan. "You leave us as a brother in battle, having proven that courage and honor know no species boundaries." The celebration that night was unlike anything Marcus had experienced. Warriors who had previously treated him as a curiosity now welcomed him as an equal, sharing battle stories and treating his opinions with genuine respect. The scent bombs that had disrupted the Shadowstalker pack were examined and praised as innovative tactical thinking, while his single combat victory was already being incorporated into clan battle songs. But even as Marcus enjoyed his newfound acceptance, he knew that his real test was yet to come. Word of a human being inducted into the Bloodclaw clan would spread throughout the Vorthak Confederation, and not all reactions would be positive. Some would see it as an honor properly earned, while others would view it as a violation of sacred traditions. More importantly, Marcus realized that his actions had implications far beyond his personal situation. He had demonstrated that humans possessed capabilities that the galaxy's premier warrior species had not anticipated. The diplomatic ramifications could reshape the entire relationship between humanity and the Vorthak Confederation. As he looked around at his new clan brothers celebrating their victory, Marcus understood that he was no longer just a cultural exchange student. He had become a bridge between species, carrying the responsibility of representing all of humanity to a civilization that now saw his people in an entirely different light. The soft alien had become a warrior, but the real battle for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Vorthak Confederation, facing a gathering of huntmasters from across the galaxy's most powerful warrior civilization. The massive chamber, carved from a single crystalline formation, held representatives from over 100 clans, their combined presence creating an atmosphere of barely contained predatory energy that would have terrified him when he first arrived on Vorth Prime. Now, wearing the battle harness of the Bloodclaw clan and bearing the scars of proven combat, Marcus felt the weight of their attention without fear. He had learned to stand among apex predators as an equal, not prey. "The human claims to speak for his entire species," declared Huntmaster Vorthak of the Ironscale clan, his forearms crossed in obvious skepticism. "Yet we have only his word that other humans possess the same unexpected capabilities we have witnessed." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. News of Marcus's induction into the Bloodclaw clan had spread throughout Vorthak space, creating intense debate about humanity's true nature and capabilities. Some clans viewed it as proof that their initial assessment of humans had been catastrophically wrong. Others suspected it was an isolated anomaly that proved nothing about the species as a whole. "I do not speak for humanity," Marcus replied, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "I speak as humanity. Everything I have accomplished here, Every capability I have demonstrated exists because of what my species evolved to become. I am not unique among humans. I am typical of them. Bold words, rumbled Huntmaster Kethvar of the Stormclaw clan, but words are easily spoken. How do we know your endurance, your tactical thinking, your combat courage represent more than individual excellence? Huntmaster Kazthor rose from his position among the clan representatives. His presence commanded immediate attention, and the authority in his voice was absolute. Because I have studied human history during these past months, as has every warrior with wisdom enough to understand what we witnessed. He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images began flowing across the projection, scenes from human history that made the assembled Vorthak warriors lean forward with intense interest. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a world where they were neither the strongest nor the fastest predators, Kazthor explained. They survived by developing the one capability that no other species possessed, the ability to never stop pursuing their prey. They would chase creatures 10 times, their size across vast distances until exhaustion brought down beasts that could have killed them easily in direct confrontation. The hologram shifted to show human, military history, images of soldiers fighting in impossible conditions, outnumbered forces holding defensive positions through sheer determination, and battles won through tactical innovation when direct strength proved insufficient. They carried this persistence into warfare, Kazthor continued. When faced with superior enemies, humans did not accept defeat. They adapted, innovated, and continued fighting until they found ways to win. Their entire species embodies the most dangerous quality any prey can possess. They refuse to accept that they are prey. A new voice interrupted from the assembly's upper tiers. Even if this is true, what does it change? The Confederation has thrived for millennia without human alliance. Why should we risk our traditions for a species we barely understand? The speaker was ancient Huntmaster Yargoth, eldest of the clan leaders and traditionally the most conservative voice in Confederation politics. His words carried weight that could influence the entire assembly's decision. Marcus stepped forward, knowing this was the moment that would determine not just his own fate, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and the Vorthak Confederation. Because you're about to face an enemy that your traditional methods cannot defeat, he said, his words creating a stunned silence in the chamber. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing intelligence reports from the Confederation's outer territories. Marcus had spent weeks studying Vorthak military intelligence, using his xenobiology background to analyze patterns that the warriors might have missed. The Xanth Empire is not expanding randomly, Marcus explained. They're following a systematic campaign designed specifically to counter Vorthak's strengths. They avoid direct confrontation, preferring siege warfare and attrition tactics. They use automated systems that don't tire, don't fear, and don't break under pressure. They're turning your greatest strength, your warrior tradition, into a weakness by forcing you to fight in ways that negate your natural advantages. The assembled Huntmasters began studying the tactical displays with growing unease. Marcus was describing warfare patterns they had encountered but not fully understood. Battles where superior Vorthak skill and courage had been systematically negated by enemy. Tactics designed to exploit warrior psychology. Humans understand this type of warfare, Marcus continued. We evolved fighting enemies we couldn't defeat through direct confrontation. We learned to win through persistence, adaptation, and tactical innovation. We developed strategies for fighting when traditional strength isn't enough. Ancient Huntmaster Yargoth's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the intelligence displays. You suggest that human weakness could somehow become our strength? I suggest that human strength could complement Vorthak's strength, Marcus replied. Your warriors are unmatched in direct combat, but the Xanth Empire is avoiding direct combat. Human tactical doctrine excels at forcing enemies into disadvantageous positions, creating opportunities for your warriors to use their superior combat abilities effectively. Huntmaster Kazthor added his voice to Marcus's argument. The human has proven himself in combat against our deadliest predators, but more importantly, he has demonstrated tactical thinking that saved warrior lives during the Shadowstalker attack. His scent disruption techniques have already been adopted by our scouts as standard procedure. Furthermore, came a new voice from the assembly. Human endurance capabilities could revolutionize our long-range operations. The speaker was Huntmaster Zarketh of the Swiftclaw clan, known for her tactical innovations. Our traditional raid tactics rely on overwhelming force applied quickly, but the Xanth Empire's defensive systems are designed to counter exactly these approaches. Human persistence techniques could allow us to maintain pressure over extended periods, exhausting their automated defenses through sustained operations. The debate that followed stretched for hours, with clan representatives arguing the merits and risks of formal alliance with humanity. Some saw the potential for military advantage, while others worried about contamination of traditional warrior culture. The discussion grew heated as fundamental questions about Vorthak identity and values came into sharp focus. Finally, ancient Huntmaster Yargoth called for silence. The chamber fell quiet as the eldest warrior rose to his feet, his movements deliberate despite his advanced age. "I have led warriors in battle for longer than most of you have been alive," he began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "I have seen enemies rise and fall, technologies advance and become obsolete, and tactics evolve with the changing nature of warfare." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembled huntmasters before settling on Marcus. "What I have not seen in all my years is a species prove itself worthy of respect through individual achievement in our most sacred traditions. The human stands before us bearing the battle scars of personal combat against our greatest predators. He has saved warrior lives through tactical innovation. He has demonstrated capabilities we did not know existed among alien species." The ancient warrior's voice grew stronger, carrying conviction that resonated through the chamber. "More importantly, he has shown us that strength takes many forms, and that true warriors can emerge from the most unexpected origins. To refuse alliance with humanity because they do not resemble us would be the height of foolish pride." The formal vote that followed was closer than Marcus had hoped, but decisive enough to matter. By a margin of 67 to 41, the Vorthak Confederation approved formal military alliance with humanity, contingent on successful integration trials and joint training exercises. As the assembly dissolved into smaller groups discussing implementation details, Huntmaster Kazthor approached Marcus with an expression of deep satisfaction. "You have done something remarkable, young warrior," he said. "You came to us seeking understanding and instead taught us to understand ourselves better. The Confederation will be stronger for this alliance, and humanity will find in us brothers worthy of the name." Marcus looked around the chamber at warriors who had once seen him as weak prey, but now accepted him as an equal. The transformation seemed impossible, but it had happened through the simple process of proving that preconceptions could be dangerously wrong. "There's something else," Marcus said. "I've been thinking about Earth's response when they learn about all this. My government sent me here as a cultural observer, but I'm returning as the architect of a military alliance with the galaxy's premier warrior species." Kazthor's mandibles clicked. In what Marcus had learned was profound amusement. "Perhaps your own people will learn the same lesson we have learned, that strength comes in many forms, and wisdom lies in recognizing it regardless.